Okay, so the next thing we're going to look at is our droplets. Now this is very similar to an image processor in that you can get it to run automatically any action that you want. But instead of having to select your images in Bridge and then tell it to work, we can actually create what's called a droplet that sits either in a folder or on your desktop, and you simply drag your image onto that. So that's what we're going to do, and I'm going to show you how that works. Now I have these images that I showed you earlier on where they were all taken and they were all like one stop under. So I'm going to drag this into Photoshop and we're going to create an action that corrects the problem. And then now imagine there was like 100 images in there and I'd done 100, they were all a stop under, and I want to run through, boost them all, then this is what I do. So let's go create an action and let's just simply call this one stop under. And we're going to hit record. What I want to do is I want to fill a folder, my finished images folder, full of images that are correctly exposed, maybe have a little bit of a color boost and a watermark. So let's do that. So first of all, we're going to run the underexpose action. So again, we can, even though we're recording, we can play another action, and then we're going to flatten it, and then we're going to color boost, and if we want to sharpen, flatten that down, we're going to hit sharpen, play, hit the watermark again, play. Okay, and what we're going to do with this one now, we're actually going to add a save to it. So I'm going to flatten it down, and I'm going to go File, Save As, and I'm actually going to save this. I don't want to save it in my one stop under, I'm not going to overwrite anything. I'm going to hit my desktop, and I'm going to save this in my desktop as a JPEG. So I'm also going to save this as a higher, you can play with this here, and whatever you set here is what the droplet's going to do. So we're going to set this as a 10. You know, if I want to save this as PSDs, I can do that. Whatever you do here, your droplet's going to do. Now if you remember our image processor, when we wanted to set that up, we actually did the save in there. So we did some proofs and we set it up as a level 8 quality JPEG for our proofs. But here, using the droplet, we're going to do all the actions in Photoshop and create this action that does everything, including the save. So click OK, and that's going to save down to my desktop. You can see it just there. Now I'm going to hit stop. Okay, so that's my action done. That's my one stop under. So what I'm going to do now, I'm actually going to delete this, and I'm actually going to delete this off my desktop, so I'll just drag that into the garbage. Okay, so what we're going to do next, we're going to create this droplet that's going to sit down here. So we're going to go File, Automate, and Create Droplet. Okay, so right now, Create Droplet is going to come up. It's going to ask us for a name. So let's choose a name for this one, and we're going to go, and we're going to call this One Stop, just to be quick. One Stop, click Save, and that's going to allow us to run this one stop under action. It's going to ask us for the action there. Okay, suppress file open options dialog, we're going to keep that ticked. Suppress color profile warnings, we shouldn't have any of them, but we're going to keep that ticked anyway. Override action open commands. Now if we needed it to run an action that had an open command, then we could actually tick these. But the way we're working right now, it doesn't matter, so leave these unticked. And then we're going to choose a destination folder. Now we already have that set as our finished images, because that's what was working before. And what I'm going to do now, I would want a document name, so I use the drop down box, click a document name, and we're going to call these One Stop Corrected. Just pick a name, and I'm going to give them a sequential serial number and then an extension number. It's always good to have a sequential serial number in here. There's only a few images we're playing with right now, but if you had 100, then you can give them a sequential digit and you can give them a name, so all your new images will be named and numbered, and you can see an example of what's going to happen here. As we play with these, the example changes, and we're going to ask it to stop for errors. Now this one is interesting here. This is override action save as commands. If I untick this and then tick it again, a warning box comes up and it tells you about this. Now if we hadn't got a save as command in our droplet, then we would want to have this off. But because we have, see, I'll read it to you. When this option is on, files will be saved to the destination folder only by save as steps in the action. And if you remember, we did the save as steps. We saved as a JPEG to our desktop, so we want to tick this on. And if we hadn't, if there was no save as, we would untick it. But the best thing to do is to create the save as in Photoshop and then tick this here to override. So click OK, make sure it's ticked. We're going to click OK up here now, and now this will create a little program down here called onestop.exe, and all I have to do is take my folder of images and drag it onto the droplet. And Photoshop can be closed, it can be shut down, and all you have to do is drag the folder onto the thing. It will open up Photoshop and it will run through everything just as we wanted. So if we go look in finished images, and we should be able to see now, yep, there it is, it's working. I think there was just 2 in my one stop under. I just had 2 images in there just so this would run through quite quickly. So it's done one, and there we go, it's done the other. So that's a droplet. It's basically very similar to our image processor, but it's a standalone program that sits on our desktop just like that. And so instead of having to select all the images in Bridge, we simply take our folder of images and drag it onto the droplet just like we did there.